Up until today, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, was only allowed to hire agents under the age of 40. Today, Trump's Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem scrapped that rule.
We've removed any of the age barriers. We no longer have a cap on how old you can be.
ICE agents can now be as old as the day is long, it turns out. Come on down, Grandpa. They'll still take you. Doesn't matter how old you are. And at the same time, yesterday, 404 Media reported that ICE is also ramping up its effort to recruit young people. The agency is reportedly looking for a digital advertising company to, quote unquote, dominate digital media channels, targeting Gen Z via ads on social media and on streaming services like Hulu and HBO Max. They want old people, they want young people, they want anyone they can get, it seems. They've already seen ICE flood social media with recruitment ads like this one, quote, America needs you. Join ICE now. Or this one, quote, want to deport illegals with your absolute boys? Go to joinice.gov. I'm clearly not the target audience for that in any way, shape, or form. Or this post, which says, quote, defend your culture. No undergraduate degree required. Phrase your culture is doing a lot of offensive work there in that old advertisement. ICE has even sent targeted emails to hundreds of local police officers and sheriff's deputies across the country, trying to poach them, angering local law enforcement leaders. As one Florida police chief put it to NBC News, quote, everybody's so pissed. The reality is that local law enforcement salaries can't compete. Thanks to more than $29 billion in funding for hiring and training for Trump's big, ugly bill, ICE is now offering up to $50,000 in a signing bonus to new recruits and up to $60,000 of student debt repayment. You could be 18, you could be 75, you don't need a college degree. They'll take you. You can hang out with your absolute boys and defend your culture. And they'll give you a big, fat bonus and pay off your student loans if you've got them. That is how ICE is hiring right now. The goal is to hire 10,000 more agents to supersize Trump's immigration crackdown. And while Trump is supersizing the part of our immigration system that arrests people, he is simultaneously shrinking the part of the system that gives those same people due process. While he is hiring ICE agents by the thousands, he is firing immigration judges by the dozens.
For Judge Dice, the axe came last Thursday in the form of a 3-sentence email. The Attorney General has decided to remove you from your position, the email stated. Your removal is effective today.
Since Trump took office in January, his administration has fired dozens of immigration judges without cause or reason with emails like that one. The immigration courts now only have about 600 immigration judges total nationwide to handle a backlog of about 3.5 million cases. That means that while the Trump administration is trying to arrest, imprison, and deport an unprecedented number of immigrants, there will be fewer and fewer immigration judges around to hear those immigrants' cases, to decide whether or not their arrests were lawful. Now, normally immigration judges can't comment on administration actions because of their jobs. But now that Trump has fired them, some immigration judges are starting to speak out. And I want you to hear how they're thinking about all of this.
What's at stake here?
It's really the future of our country. If the funding is going to enforcement and there's no justice left, that shows that our country is no longer embracing the need for due process and for justice.
If you're attacking the very judges that adjudicate cases, there's not going to be a rule of law. That should concern everybody, not just immigrants, but U.S. citizens.
Today is them, is immigrants. What about tomorrow? Who's going to get due process denied next?
Who's going to get due process denied next? It's quite a statement.
They don't have a right to see a judge.
Right.
They came here illegally. They came here illegally.
Excuse me?
So when the Japanese were bombing Pearl Harbor, did we give them due process to actually see a judge?
No. We put them in concentration camps.
They invaded our country.
We put them in concentration camps. Have you heard?
That was the lieutenant governor of Indiana earlier this week. And as you can see, the Trump administration's talking points about how invading immigrants do not deserve due process has quickly saturated the MAGA world. It's not where the majority of the public is, but certainly where the majority of some of the MAGA world is. That's deeply alarming, considering the tens of billions of dollars being now poured into immigration enforcement, courtesy of the big, ugly bill. While at the same time, desperately needed officials like immigration judges are being culled. Joining me now is Jay Johnson. He served in multiple prominent roles during the Obama administration, including as the Secretary of Homeland Security, which, of course, oversees border security and enforcement of immigration laws. It is great to see you, and there's so much to ask you about. I just want to start by asking you about the influx of funding into ICE. And immigration enforcement. And this is certainly part of enforcement is part of what our country does under any president. But what we've seen as of late in the last several months, I mean, the arresting on the street of students, of parents, of people who are seeking asylum, of people some who are here legally, spouses of veterans. There's so many stories here. It seems to be in the pursuit of meeting this 3,000 a day quota. How concerned are you about that? And, of course, the massive influx of funding to ICE. It's almost like they don't know what to do with the money.
Exactly. First, I have to take exception with that clip you showed from the lieutenant governor. A migrant in the United States is not the equivalent of a wartime enemy. Let's be clear about that. Anytime there's a large plus-up of massive funding in a big hurry, you always have to worry as a taxpayer whether that money is going to be spent wisely. There are going to be a lot of private contractors with their hands out, not necessarily yielding to the best deal for the American taxpayer. And I'm not sure it makes sense to, for example, if you were in the midst of a war against drugs, you might hire a lot of DEA agents, you might hire a lot of cops, but you don't then also fire a lot of judges in order to hear the cases and sentence people to incarceration. So right now, the immigration backlog is years. It's millions of cases, backlog years. Very often, a migrant shows up to hear an asylum claim, to present an asylum claim. The judge hears it for 2 hours and then says, come back in 2027. So the answer is not lay off judges. If President Trump wants to see more deportations, wants to see the process move a lot faster, you don't create a huge backlog. I have to also add that this surge of hiring new ICE agents, anytime you draw a big net like that and try to bring on just anybody who wants to defend their culture, so to speak, you have to worry about exactly the character of the person you're bringing on. Big city police departments have made this mistake from time to time. Instead of hiring a dedicated, disciplined law enforcement officer, they're hiring the neighborhood badass. And that leads to a lot of real problems in the enforcement of the law.
I think that's exactly the concern with the incentivizing of $60,000 and student loan relief of what kind of people they might be pulling in and attracting to this. And to be clear, I have many issues with the lieutenant governor, too. I'm glad you called that out. That's an important thing to call out. Let me also ask you about, because one of the other pieces that we've seen about the immigration policies of this administration is this opening of detention centers. There is, of course, Alligator Alcatraz, which is a horrible name, opened up in the Florida Everglades. They're now touting the possibility of opening up another one in Indiana. There have been many reports about the inhumane conditions at the Florida facility and other facilities. You are not only used to oversee this department, you're also a very prominent lawyer. What questions do you have about what's happening in these facilities, and what should people be demanding answers on?
I'd be interested to know the demographics of the people who are in these facilities. Are we talking about single adult males? Are we talking about families? Are we talking about small children? What is the average stay in these facilities? What can one expect if you go there? What are the conditions like? A lot of these are stood up by private contractors. What kinds of guarantees do they make about cleanliness, about basic food and water? Anytime you surge like this, you have to be concerned about the conditions not being basically humane. And so, and no matter what happens, a number of people are still going to have to be released because in a surge, you just don't have the type of detention capability that you would expect if you have thousands of people crossing in a day. The numbers are low right now, very obviously. So one questions the need for this large detention space. It seems to me what they're trying to do is send a deterrent to make it sound as ugly as possible. But in fact, the numbers are the lowest they've been in years right now crossing the southern border.